बावरे देख रहे हैं कुछ नहीं था जी। देख रहे हैं नैन बावरे देख रहे हैं नैन।
In a few moments, this place will be transformed by magic, the magic of Naya Theatre. The creator, a man with an international background, in search of an Indian theatre, Habib Tanvir. Dramatist and director, actor and teacher, has created a unique style that distinguishes him in Indian as well as world theatre.
Mr. H.A. Khan, Purana service wala. Dai motra. मेरा तो मुंडी ला काट के अंदर हवा में उड़ा दे।
बिन मुड़ी के में मसाला सर की रत रही होता था।
तब मजा आए।
अब क्या कर बे भैया?
अरे तो हड्डी चमड़ी ला पीस के चिकन चटनी असन को लगावा दे।
बने आकर के खावे रे कुकुर रोगा। अब कब खवावे भैया?
तो हाथ गोड़ ला काट काट के तीड़ी बीड़ी बगराहू रे।
मोहाल मोड़ा सब अलग अलग परे नहीं जी। ये सब ला पीस के कैसे खवावे?
अरे मोर बस चलती तो अभी सब खवा देते हैं रे। ये कैसे करूं अभी सरकारी ड्यूटी पे हूं। दर मोटरा। दर मोटरा।
Habib Tanvir has brought these peasant performers out from their isolation and given shape to their skills in a modern theatrical idiom. The theatre of Habib Tanvir, modern in form and content, speaks in the dialect of Chhattisgarhi, where his actors come from. Habib's wife, Monica, performs a unique role in this community of performers, concerned, as she is, with many details of their life and art. Habib Tanvir has not tried to transplant Chhattisgarhi performers into an urban context, but has tried to extend their frontiers. Within the framework of their traditional skills and mimetic faculties, he has nurtured modern dramatic and theatrical thought. His subjects are chosen from far and wide, from Indian folk tales to Bertolt Brecht. He has tried to assimilate such varied sources into the folk origin of his players, in terms of their experience and expression, their language and melody, their sense and sensibility. Habib Tanvir lives in Delhi, but his home is secluded from the pomp and pageantry of the Indian capital. Bir Sarai is tucked away in a forgotten corner of South Delhi. Here is an almost rural ambience, virtually unchanged by urban influence, where Habib has lived and worked with his troupe for years. Whole-time professionals, the players of Naya Theatre, rehearse round the year. They go back to their homes occasionally during harvest and festivals. Recently, Delhi civic authorities have terminated Habib's lease at Sarai, and this little hamlet on the edge of Delhi will be erased by a modern housing complex. For Naya Theatre, it will mean a change of scenario. Its effect remains to be seen, but for the moment, one cannot but be sad for the axe that is to fall upon a unique experiment in modern Indian theatre.
आते कहते कपड़ा तो बाप कह रहे
मोर नहीं है
तो नहीं है फिर क्या करे
ग्राहक मन के
कैसे कहे
ग्राहक मन के
तो धोबिया खाए
वाह यहाँ के खास धोबी महाराज
पहले का नहीं बता
एक बता के मौका नहीं दे
सुन यहाँ गांव में एक सोन के थाली चोरी हो है चुराए हो तो मोला बता दे रपट नहीं करो आपस में निपट ले वो
मैं चोरी वोरी नहीं करा महाराज
चोरी नहीं करता फिर घर घर घुसाता गली गली जाता चोर जाना जरूर होवे ओकर नाम मोला बता देवे तो तोरा इनाम देवे
तो फिर मैं नहीं बता
काबर
जब मुंह मनसेमन बैठे सब सुंदर नहीं जी
कहाँ
ये दे वही नहीं
कहीं के नंजरिया सारे ए दे 2 रुपया धर अभी
हाँ
भाग में आऊ जाऊं
हाँ
ले बता
सुन माना जो उन्हें चोरी करे है ना वो हाथ चोर आए
बोला मैं जाना था
तो जाना था तो जा पकड़ ले
अरे बतावे था
वाह बताया था भाजी
का
चोर
ऐसा देऊ तो दांत टूट जाई
अरे
अरे बेटा मैं तुमको नाम पूछा था चोर के नाम बता
नाम ला पूछे महाराज सुन जब ना चोरी करते ना ओला चोर कथे कुछ नहीं कहे भाई
चोरी करते तो ओला चोर तो करते हैं नाम पूछा तो सारे में है अबे कहाँ चल रहे सारे मोड़ा बैकू बना क्या रहे
Habib's home is like those of his players. With his wife Monica and daughter Nagin, he shares the life of Naya Theatre in all its facets. Perhaps the strength of his art has grown out of this proximity and from this Spartan simplicity of his living. Habib Tanvir was born in Raipur, a sleepy little town in Madhya Pradesh, the heartland of Chhattisgarhi. The late entry of industrialization in this area has helped its people to retain its traditional culture and values. Habib grew up as a young man in this culture, which had peacefully assimilated both Islamic and Hindu faiths and ideals. There can be little doubt that the presence of nature and the timeless ambience awakened the artistic sensibilities of Habib Tanvir. This is what planted in his mind the seed of the poet who found his voice in the theatre. Even today, Habib remains a practicing poet in his mother tongue, Urdu, the language in which his scripts are still written.
ना आता काश मेरे रास्ते में फिर वही गांव कि अब न तू है कहीं और न गांव में कोई बात न अब है मेरे वो दिन और न मेरे वो जज्बात उजाड़ उजाड़ मकान है उजाड़ है बस्ती उजाड़ उजाड़ है मैदान उजाड़ उजाड़ नदी अभी मैं सोच रहा था यहाँ मैं क्या ठहरूं कि दफतन मुझे आवाज दी फिजाओं ने पिनाई पाँव में पगडंडियों ने एक जंजीर हवा में वैसे ही लहराए खेत के गेसू, फिजा में उड़ गई वैसी ही पेड़ की बाहें, नदी में फिर नजर आई तेरी नशीली चाह। अच्छा, खुदा हाफिज।
From boyhood, he remained drawn to the theatre, which in Raipur was performed largely in the Hindu Kalibari, a place of worship.
हबीब साहब को बहुत ज़्यादा ड्रामे का शौक था और हमारे फादर चाहते थे कि वो ICS के इम्तिहान में बैठे और तरक्की करें, दुनिया में ऑफिसर बने, ऑफिसर लाइन के लिए बहुत ज़हीन थे, पढ़ने में बहुत ज़्यादा होशियार था, तो और घर भर का चाहिए था बहुत ज़्यादा, तो वो चाहते थे कि खूब पढ़ लिख के तरक्की करे। और जिनको ड्रामे का बहुत शौक था, इन्होंने हाई स्कूल में गौहरे इफ्लास नाम के ड्रामे में बहुत नाम कमाया, हीरो का पार्ट किए थे और बहुत ज़्यादा लोगों में बहुत ज़्यादा इनकी इज्जत कदर हुई, सारे शहर में शोहरत हो गई, बहुत ज़्यादा उनके खूब इनाम मिले इसको।
Young Habib found his vocation at All India Radio, Bombay. The awakening of Habib's artistic sensibilities coincided with the awakening of a new India in the 40s. The rise of the Indian masses under Gandhiji and events like the Great Bengal Famine were reflected in theatre and other arts. The use of things like jute cloth as a backdrop heralded the arrival of a totally new aesthetics. Young Habib plunged headlong into the Indian People's Theatre Association, which was formed by the Communist Party in 1943. After independence, an opportunity took Habib Tanvir to the West, to theatre capitals like London, Paris, and Berlin. Habib's search for a new language and a new philosophy of the theatre found a different dimension during his interaction with Brecht. The German dramatist's involvement with Oriental theatre forms must have contributed to a turning point.
Goodwill sheds on his songs in the play. I adapted it to Indian cultural ethos. For instance, the song Saint Never Comes Day. I took to the spirit of the word, never come, and Kabhu Nahi Aane Wala Din.
In a garage in Delhi, Habib discovered an experimental theatre troupe and his future wife Monica. His journey had begun. The journey continues today, 3 decades later.
आदिवासियों के लिए 12 हो जाएंगे ना?
आदिवासियों के लिए 12 बल्कि हाँ 12 है।
तुम बैठो ना, तो 3 तो तुम्हारी स्ट्राइप साड़ी लाने के लिए और बाकी ये 3 ना?
ये 3 कॉलर का।
A journey that brought him to his roots in Chhattisgarhi, a living matrix of folk mimetic arts. His search for form led him to new talent as well, the human resources that created Naya Theatre. At Naya Theatre, all these turn up in unexpected novel ways, woven into an integrated mimetic fabric.
working in many rural regions. But above all, in Chhattisgarh, I got myself entrenched here because above all, I come from Chhattisgarh. And I noticed, I kept returning to the villages of Chhattisgarh to contact these artists and got them from here because there is a continuity of authentic Indian cultural tradition in the villages of India. To utilize it and to put an element of modernity in it, to introduce contemporaneity in it, that was my main motive. And I was at it over the years. And the productions that are there now by this time have authenticated the belief that it is possible to use tradition with a difference, infuse it with some contemporary and make it significant for the society of today. And allow it to remain totally, authentically Indian, at the same time having a universal appeal.
ये है छत्तीसगढ़ की तरफ से और ये हरे दिल्ली की तरफ से और ये है कलकत्ता की तरफ से और ये हरे टाटा नगर की तरफ से और ये है सबके तरफ से। अरे मोर तो आंखी मुंद आगे। अरे मैं तो आंखी खड़े हो जी। ये दे कैंची धरो और ये दे फीता लामे उद्घाटन करो। ये दे ये क्या है? ये है नवा स्कूल बने, काट दो ऐसे। और ये दो ये दे ये दे ये क्या है? ये चाह दुकान है, काट दो ऐसे। और ये दे ढहरा जाओ। ये दे ये क्या है? ये जूता दुकान है, काट दो ऐसे। और ये दो ये क्या है? गवर्नमेंट है पब्लिक नंबर बाथरूम बनवा है, काट दो ऐसे।
All of Habib's players come from the downtrodden and lower castes. In India, they have been the victims of social oppression through the ages.
This is the typical Devar Dera, the nomadic tribe called Devar in Chhattisgarh, roaming all over the place. This is how they live. And our girls, Fidabai, Malabai, Ponambai, they all come from this background. It is in one such place that I had met Fidabai. Apart from the Nacha where I saw her, this was the setting. Likewise, I found Ponambai and Malabai in the same setting.
Naya Theatre, however, significant change in the lives of its players. Traditionally poor and dispossessed, their marginal existence continues. Nationwide, or even worldwide, acclaim has not freed their families from the clutches of poverty. With the curse of generations persisting, they continue to practice their art. Habib's intimate knowledge of the pain and suffering of their lives contributes to the naturalness with which it expresses itself in the productions of Naya Theatre.
Má tại vì có phải về phi bị má không biết chi các bạn mắt phải tắt cái máy rồi mắt tắt cái máy không.
You see, my theatre consists of folk actors. The nucleus is composed of rural actors, illiterate actors from the villages of Chhattisgarh, most of them illiterate. folk and tribal. Now, due to this, there is an impression that it is folk theatre. Now, folk theatre has its own limitations. It has got its own specific object. It is, in its own ethos, it serves the purpose. Firstly, it is composed of 4 to 6 musicians and 4 or 5 actors, rather 2 or 3 actors most of the time, and 2 or 3 or more people who dress up as women, impersonate women, and they dance and sing in between different skits. That is the style of the Chhatisgarhi folk theatre called the Nacha. But I use huge crowds, 30, 50, even 70 on the stage. That by itself makes a difference. I use folk actors in order to bring cultural authenticity in the way I'm trying to express myself through dramas.
Habib's world comes alive to the sound of folk musical instruments and tribal drums, and brings into focus a choreography inspired by peasant acrobatics and folk rituals. At Bir Sarai, life begins early in the day. Like village life everywhere in India, daily chores of living are performed side by side with the daily tasks of the theatre. Here is life and art, inextricably mixed, so that the dividing line is often blurred and undistinguishable.
नतीजे में हिंदुस्तान बट गया, ये ज़मीं बट गई, आसमां बट गया। ये नतीजे में हिंदुस्तान बट गया, तर्ज़ तहरी तर्ज़ बयां बट गया, शाखे गुल बट गई, आशियां बट गया।
Rehearsals at Naya Theatre are integral to the daily living of its performers. And because living is in the context of a close-knit community, rehearsals in different forms are taking place all the time.
तर्ज़ बयां बट गया, शाखे गुल बट गई, आशियां बट गया।
Naya Theatre has its own world within itself, where laughter, gossip and games are interwoven into their theatre. Habib is close to the hamlets and huts of the folk performers who have given shape to his theatre. His contact with them and his understanding has certainly helped to articulate his modern ideas within the framework of their folk expression. A living theatre that survives constantly by living with theatre. Habib's sophistication, intellectual and cultural, expresses itself purely in a grassroots language. In the process, his ideas undergo change. He plays his role as a leader, as a creator of ideas, along with his role of a student of life, learning from the people. Habib writes his play with his players, so his rehearsals are part of the creative process of playwriting. It is a free-flowing form of improvisation involving both his players and his pen.
तो ऐसा कर नहीं करना चाहिए। अच्छा हाँ 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 ठीक है ले लो। तो वो रह गया। ये दोनों चीज़ें इधर से तुम आए थे उसको तो पिछाड़ी में घूम करके आए और फिर दांत देखने के लिए और सब देखना चाहिए गार्डन में वो बात नहीं रही। तो अब असल बात तो ये है कि ये जो सीन जब आएगा उसमें सिद्धार्थ देख रहे हैं तो उसमें जब दांत दांतियाँ बेच रहे हैं और वहाँ भी दांत की बात होती है और उनकी स्वास्थ्य की कहते हैं वो है तो ये जो भाव इसके अंदर पैदा हुआ उस भाव को वहाँ लाना है जो व्यंग जो है उसका इंसानों को गागर में जैसे बेचा गया
चरणदास के चोरी करे छोड़ दे बेटा।
वाह चोरी करे छोड़ दे हूँ तो खाऊं काला गुड़ दे।
वाह सब दुनिया का आदमी चोरी करके खाती जी। अरे मेहनत कर मजदूरी कर अरे औकाबर मुंह टेढ़ा कर दे जवाब देना रे। अरे बेटा 1000 परम गुरु करा नहीं करस तो एक चीज तो छोड़ दे।
एक चीज कथा गुरुदेव मैं 4 चीज छोड़ दे।
4 चीज? अच्छा काका
पहली पराने गुरुदेव आज मैं सोन के थाली में खावे चली कर।
अच्छा ये पहली पराने।
हाँ और दूसरा पराने गुरुदेव आज ले मैं हाथी घोड़ा बैठ के और जुलूस में जावे चली कर।
अच्छा ये दूसरा परान।
हाँ और तीसरा पराने गुरुदेव कोई भी देश की रानी चाहे वो कद को सुंदर है मोर से कही आज चरणदास मोर से शादी कर ले मैं नहीं करूँ गुरुदेव।
अच्छा ये तीसरा पराने।
और चौथा पाने गुरुदेव कोई भी देश के जनता मोर से कही कि चरणदास ये देश के गद्दी खाली है मैं बैठ जाऊं ये देश के राजा बन जा मैं नहीं बना गुरुदेव।
मोर अखाड़ा मत एक चेला है बेटा फिर तोर सरी चेला नहीं आ रही
तुम्हारा भागे च नहीं गुरुदेव।
ये 4 परन लती अपन मन से करे तो मोर मन से करे।
अपन मन से
मोर मन से तो नहीं करे ना।
नहीं नहीं
एक परन ते गुरु मान जा बाबू
वो का है
झूठ बोले छोड़ दे।
तू ही मन बता गुरुदेव ये सूरज ले रोशनी लालक का दूध बनी का नहीं बने ये अंगली से नख लालक का दूध बनी नहीं बनी। हाँ इसने झूठ और चोरी के जम के रिश्ता है गुरुदेव एक दूसरे के बिना पंडे नहीं करे।
हाँ तो मोर से नहीं बने
नहीं गुरुदेव ऐसे जब
The Panthi or Satnami cult has been an inspiration for many of them. They believe that elevation to the status of Brahmanism comes from personal goodness, not birthright. Caste is no barrier to faith or perfection. Naya theatre has helped to empower this sense of personal dignity, untainted by caste, creed or religion. In a society where social and cultural divisions have shed so much blood, this is a major achievement.
So when the urban milieu was cut off from this tradition, the folks continued. The main thing about this tradition of Indian theatre has been, as against the European tradition, the Aristotelian tradition. The tradition followed from Aristotle's Poetics, in which three unities of space, time and action are very rigidly and properly maintained. That was not the case in India. That is the main difference. The main difference is that the Indian theatre did not recognize time, did not recognize the unity of space and the unity of action. It broke through all this. And it had to say something. It only had one unity, the unity of rasa. And in producing it, they transgressed, they just broke the unities and created drama. This is what the classical Indian theatre does. This is exactly what the folk theatre does too. This in the main is the common element, common factor between these two traditions, the great tradition and the small so-called little tradition.
His access to international thought and culture has certainly enriched his ideas, but its seed has found soil in the earthiness of his troupe.
मरो चाहे बाँचो, मैं अपन गुरु के पढ़ेला नहीं तो रानी मुझे माफी दे।
चोर चंडाल
पाप झनकर
भुजोर बदमाश
हत्या झनकर
Charandas Chor is the most celebrated of Naya theatre productions. Taken from a Rajasthani folk tale, Charandas, through its use of drama and pantomime, dance and acrobatics, raises modern questions of good and evil, vice and virtue.
ये चोर लखन छुरी कैसे आगे बढ़ खड़ी भीतर ये कर जाए हिम्मत तुम सब के सब कहाँ चले गए कहाँ मर गए चरणदास आके बोला कहा त्रिस तोर से शादी कर लूं अब तुम सब खड़े होकर डर का देखा ऐसे आदमी ने तो मार काट के फेंक दो
अंजाई
Charandas is every man. Charandas is you and me. He may speak in Chhatisgarhi, but those are our words. He may dance or cartwheel like Central Indian folk performers, but he expresses the pain of living and the fun of life. That is Habib Tanvir's achievement, to create in the theatre a moment that belongs today and yesterday in an ageless articulation of the human condition. In the competitive world of international theatre, Habib Tanvir and Naya theatre has received due recognition. The recognition of a unique form of theatrical expression. The home of Naya Theatre in Bersarai has already gone. In its place is a modern housing complex. Perhaps Habib Tanvir will build another home for Naya Theatre and his folk performers. Once again, he may tell them his stories and improvise the enactments and seek fresh melodies for new songs.
वाले नाटक का बहुत दिन सोच रहा हूँ देख रहे हैं नैन यही नाम इसी पे तय हुआ है मुझे वो अभी तक सबसे अच्छा ये लगा तो भाई की आंखें बड़ा नहीं चल रहा तो खैर ड्रामा तो आप लोग एक दो बार सुन चुके हैं उसमें से कुछ इम्प्रोवाइजेशन करेंगे। आज चुन लेते हैं कौन सा करेंगे। एक तो यह है कि जैसे वो लड़कियां जो बिक रही हैं, तो उनको 2-3 लड़कियों को एक सौदागर हैं, 3 बेच रहे हैं और नाप तो लड़कियों का कितना पता नहीं, खूबसूरती बयान कर रहे हैं और खरीदने वाले दांत देख रहे हैं, कान देख रहे हैं, ठीक है नहीं है, जैसे जानवर देखते हैं गाजर ये सब वो करेंगे। तो एक ये इम्प्रोवाइजेशन। दूसरा है तरीका कि वो चंडाल माँ को रखकर अपने लगा के जमा रहे हैं, लाश लेके आ रहा है, हाँ रख दो, शराब पी रहे हैं साथ साथ। और अच्छा, तो वो जो गाना हम लोगों ने लिखा है ना, देख रहे हैं नैन, उसी से नाम भी सोचा, 3-4 धुनें बनाई थी। हाँ, तो मुझे जरा सुर दो तो मैं वही धुन देखता हूँ। देख रहे हैं नैन बावरे, देख रहे हैं नैन, कुछ इसी तरह से देख रहे हैं नैन बावरे, देख रहे हैं नैन।
Habib's lengthy rehearsal time is a result of his quest for perfection. In fact, he rewrites the play in the process and refashions his ideas. This continuous artistic process is reflected in the way in which his new work takes folk tales and legends from the past and enriches it and invests it with the experiences and ideas of the present. His folk tales are told for today, though their plot may have come from yesterday.
मेरे भाई
This is an Indian theatre that continually asserts its Indianness, not just in form but in content as well. That is why death has no finality in Habib's theatre. It may be the beginning of another reincarnated experience. Habib Tanvir remains in spirit, a folk poet who speaks not only with words, but in the language of the theatre, the language of words, melodies, and the body, in a unique harmony.